Helping you find great things to see and do in the Greater Blue Mountains, this is the Ask Roz Blue Mountains podcast.
Welcome to episode 14 of the Ask Roz Blue Mountains podcast. While there are a lot of wonderful businesses in the Blue Mountains, one stands out for its funky and quirky in-house design products, and that's Mount Vic and Me. Mount Vic and Me is the brainchild of Cara Cooper, who kicked it off in 2013. I started by asking Cara what motivated her to go it alone with Mount Vic and Me.
All right. Well, I've actually been an independent business owner for a lot longer than 2013. I left employment. My last job was in Brisbane, and I woke up one day, I was actually in the mountains about 2006, and realised that I couldn't actually work for anyone anymore. I was happy to keep my clients, but in terms of design, it was time I actually did my own thing. So I originally started another business, which a lot of people in the mountains know about, which was Cara Smith handbags, which were all vintage fabric handbags that I created. And then that sort of evolved into going back in towards textiles and other sort of design, which then pushed me back towards my training in graphic design, and that's Mount Vic and Me started in 2013.
To me, to Roz and I, where you stand out is that you're not just running your shop, so to speak, but everything in there has a very special look and feel to it. So you are not just the retailer, you're the designer, you're the creator, the whole box and dice in one location.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realise when they walk in. So we've just moved across to this new space, which is literally next door. It's about 4 times the size. And when people come in, they say, oh, where do you get all this stuff? Which always confuses me because initially I'm not sure what they're asking, but then I realise they don't understand it's actually my work. So when I explain that the tea towels are mine, the greeting cards and mugs and things like Blue Mountain socks, which are designed by me here in Mount Victoria and created in Sydney, that shocks people that you can pretty much have all your designs, all your stuff in one space.
Well, I think that's why you've been so successful. And with your socks, I think they went back to 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's fairly recent still. There's now 10 designs in the range. I get asked a lot about doing kids' socks, but I'm trying to concentrate on something pretty quirky and out there for adults. I don't feel like we have enough for us.
Well, I think your website says there the Aussie-made funky cotton socks featuring bold Australian designs.
That's right, yep. I do get asked a lot for dogs, more greyhounds and stuffies and things like that, because my customers are actually used to, Mount Vic and Me having a lot of dogs and other stuff. So at the moment I'm concentrating on Australiana, the native birds and, nostalgic parts of the Blue Mountains and Sydney and things like that for me. But I can see with growth, I could venture into sort of many different avenues with the socks because they're so unique. They're not a standard pattern that's sort of repeated throughout the sock. It's like a piece of art the whole way around the sock.
So where do you get those made?
They're made in Sydney, so that's an Australian manufacturer. It took some time to find someone that I could source that I was comfortable with. I initially approached them about doing woolen socks, but for ethical reasons, they won't touch wool. I mean, that's their choice. They're not happy with that wool industry. It's something I do want to continue exploring, especially for the Blue Mountains, but that might be the plan for next year, I think.
Always going to have a plan.
Yep.
And with your socks and with your other designs, are you able to do low volume runs? So could someone come to you and say, I really like what you did on that tea towel, can you do me a sock?
Look, you'd have to buy a fair amount to make it sustainable. So that's where manufacturing in Australia comes a bit undone like that, and that's where the overseas market does end up being more competitive. It's one of the reasons why I choose not to have the tea towels manufactured overseas as well as the socks, the greeting cards. Everything's done here. So it is a slower process. It is an expensive process. It's something I'm passionate about, and I've talked to a lot of Australian government trade departments about exploring import from Asia, and it's something I go through, we talk, and I've decided each time, no, I'm not going to go near it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you've just moved into a new location. Now, this is on the Great Western Highway in Mount Victoria.
Yep.
Can you tell us a bit about the new location?
Well, you'll find it's directly across from the old Imperial Hotel, which has been closed for a couple of years, and there's a little we call it like a walkway of stores that are right across, set high up on the high set side of the street. And originally it was the Mountaintop Cafe, and it's changed hands a couple of times. So I was sharing the lower shop further down. It's right next door to the old original post office with a friend of mine, Jenny, that runs a psychic emporium. We went in together kind of, with trepidation about taking on retail space. We took on this tiny shop, put a little false wall in and went for it. Probably within 3 to 4 months, I had outgrown that space and realised that it was sustainable. So I had sat and waited, trying to work out what would be the next step. This shop came up and I thought, wow, that's it, I'm going to go for it. So it's probably at least 4 to 5 times the size of the one next door. And it means I can host workshops. I'm trying to encourage others to host their own workshops here too. It's a great space to kind of hang out, come up with some creative ideas. The most unusual stuff for shopping in the mountains, I reckon, mainly because it's all my stuff. And I do have a selection of other great designers too.
Now, you have a very strong online presence as well.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So what proportion of your sales would come online compared with retail?
Well, it's actually broken up into 3 different stages. Or 4 if you include graphic design, but 3 stages for Vic and Me, in that I have retail, online retail sales, and then wholesale. So the website's actually pulled apart a few different sections depending on who my customer is. So the stockists around Australia, there's something like 73, I think, around Australia now. They log in separately, so they see everything at a price point that they can then on-sell. My retail clients walk straight in the door online and they start shopping. And so that gives me 2 different kind of markets, I guess, online. So it is tricky to manage to do a retail space, then online. Stock quantities and things like that can be tricky, but I have someone that's now helping me 1 day a week, lovely Kim, and we're getting on top of it.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
What are the hours for your new location?
Now, that's the interesting question, because this shop came up at a time which I really wasn't quite sure about taking on a bigger space. I did an amazing workshop in March, a women's cruise, business cruise, and part of that learning was that I can't do everything. So we decided at that point perhaps to stop relying so heavily on retail and concentrate on my wholesale and online. Now, since then, I actually have taken up this much bigger space, which does need to be open. So once I come back from my exhibition next week, I plan to sit down and work out what I can offer to the public for retail. I do have others that will be hosting workshops, so the space will be open at many different times, at night, during the day, midweek. But I need to work out my work-life balance. So number one, it's a studio, and then it's a shop. So I explain to people that sometimes if I'm in here and I'm working and I don't kind of answer the door, it's for a reason. So I hope that makes sense to people.
It does. Now, you mentioned exhibition there. Before the interview, we were chatting, and you have an exhibition this weekend in Balmain.
Yes, that's happening tomorrow night. So that's Thursday night, the 11th of July. That's from 6 to 8 p.m. And that is my tea towel exhibition called Out to Dry. And that's a collection of my pop art personality tea towels on display. So these are not just my standard tea towels, but bigger textile pieces, which I've added some little intricate bits and pieces to. And it will also feature some of my textile design on upholstered items and some really funky stuff that people have not seen before. So I really encourage people to go down. It'll then it'll be on Thursday 11th, and then Saturday and Sunday, Saturday the 14th of July all day, and I'll be sitting there waiting for everyone.
It sounds wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Cara, I wish you well with your new location, and I would encourage anyone to either have a look at the Mount Vic and Me website or the Mount Vic and Me Facebook page and learn just how talented Cara really is.
Thanks so much.
Well, that's it for episode 14. Be sure to check out our website at www.askros.com.au and our Facebook page, Ask Ros Blue Mountains. Thanks for listening.